Is it possible to save the career of Carson Wentz in Madden 23? Well, today I'm going to try to figure that out. So looking over Carson Wentz's career, now I am an Eagles fan, so I have a little bit of attachment to Carson Wentz, I still feel like, because this season, 2017, was just absolutely incredible to watch. 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and then he started to fall off, and then here he got shipped to Indianapolis. I don't know why it shows 2020 he played for Indy, because he definitely didn't. 2021 is when he got shipped to Indianapolis, and then last season he got shipped to Washington, but just recently they ended up cutting him. So I picked the team with the lowest rated quarterback in the league, I believe, in Davis Mills with the Houston Texans, and we're going to sign Carson Wentz here in free agency and see if we can build a team around him. I'm not sure how many seasons I'm going to have here. I'm thinking 2 or 3 is probably my limit. But we are going to sign Carson Wentz here. Our first offseason, though, we have $71.9 million in cap space, so hopefully we can get him a lot of help. But now taking a look at the roster that we are starting with here, we're probably going to need a left guard because that 69 overall is not going to be great if I'm only doing 2 or 3 seasons. Running back is fine. We probably need to add a couple more receivers other than just Brandon Cooks. And then tight end is a 69 overall Brevin Jordan. The defense is also not very good. Our best piece here is probably Derek Stingley Jr. or Jalen Petrie, maybe Agbanyo Okoronkwo. I hope I said his name right. He did go to Oklahoma, so I should probably know how to say his name. But it looks like the outside linebackers are going to be a pretty big issue as well. I haven't thrown a contract at Carson Wentz yet, but there's no one going after him right now, so I'm not too worried. But the first 5 contracts I've offered here are TJ Edwards, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Desmond King, and Sion Takitaki. I hope I said his name right. Let's see how many of these guys want to become Houston Texans. I imagine not all of them, or do we actually? Yeah, we land all 5 of these guys. Now there's only 2 more contracts I'm going to throw out here to running back Devin Singletary to be a backup to Dameon Pierce, and then obviously quarterback Carson Wentz. So let's see if we can land Wentz here, and it looks like they have signed, and we get Carson Wentz, but we do not get our running back here. I did lose out on Devin Singletary, but I went ahead and signed running back Samaje Perine to be our power back. The final contract I'm going to offer here in free agency is a 1-year contract to Odell Beckham. There were no teams going after him, so let's see if we can land him here. He has signed, and he has signed with us, so we will have a receiving core of Brandon Cooks, Odell Beckham, and Sterling Shepard. On a side note here, it looks like Washington has found their replacement. They have signed quarterback Tom Brady. It is now time for the NFL draft, and I am using a custom draft class here. So with the number 1 pick, the Chicago Bears are going to take quarterback Bryce Young. At pick number 2, I'm going to make the pretty easy decision since we are not going with a quarterback. We are going to roll with Carson Wentz. I'm going to take Will Anderson Jr., who will obviously have a hidden depth trait. It looks like CJ Stroud fell all the way to pick 11 where the Tennessee Titans grabbed him, but now we have pick 12 thanks to the Cleveland Browns. With that pick from the Browns, I'm going to take defensive back Keely Ringo out of Georgia. I'm hoping I'm saying his name right, but he will have a normal depth trait, and that kind of surprises me, honestly. Before I make my second round pick here, I have made a trade. I traded quarterback Davis Mills to the Falcons for a 3rd round pick in this draft. With the 2nd round pick, I'm going to take Felix. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because I will absolutely butcher that, but he's a defensive end out of Kansas State. He will have a normal depth trait. In round 3, I'm going to take free safety J.L. Skinner out of Boise State, and he will also be a normal depth trait, so I'm not going to be drafting great in the first year. With the 8th pick here in the 3rd round, I'm going to take defensive back Travius Hodges-Tomlinson. I'm going to hope I said all of that right, and he will also be a normal depth trait, but he does have 94 speed. And with the 12th pick here in the 3rd round, I'm going to take quarterback Hendon Hooker. It looks like they had to spell his name Hooker, though, thanks to EA's censorship. But we're going to go ahead and take him. He will have a normal depth trait, and hopefully he's on a higher rating than Carson Wentz. Otherwise, the game will try to start him. If you've never seen any of my rebuilds, I only draft the first 3 rounds, and then I let the computer draft the rest of it, so that is what I'm doing now. Now, let's take a look at this draft class. Starting with Will Anderson, he is an 84 overall outside linebacker. Then Keely Ringo is a 75, a 73 overall defensive end, a 71 overall free safety, a 70 overall corner. I did have to edit Hendon Hooker. He was like a 71 overall, so I had to take some of his ratings down to a 65 just so it doesn't try to start him over Carson Wentz. A 68 overall outside linebacker, a 70 overall left tackle, a 67 overall defensive tackle, a 66 overall corner, a 62 overall right end, a 63 overall middle linebacker, and a 62 overall left end. Here is your starting offense for season 1 of this rebuild. Right now, Sterling Shepard is still injured. He will miss the first 2 weeks of the season, but the rest of the offense doesn't look horrible except for left guard. I did not get a replacement. I never saw one that I would like to draft or anything like that. So Green will be the starter. He has a star depth trait. so hopefully he can develop into like a 70 overall after this season. Over on defense now, the big addition here is obviously Will Anderson, who is an 84 overall, already one of our best linebackers, only really behind TJ Edwards. I fully expect this team to be completely and totally awful here in the first season. Like I said before, I don't know how many seasons this is going to be. My ideal thought is 2, maybe 3 seasons with Carson Wentz, but I don't know if he would retire. He's already 30 years old. I don't know how well he's going to develop or regress harshly or anything like that. Well, I'll be completely honest, we were better than I thought we were going to be. We finished the season 6-11. We have the number 17 offense in points per game, but the number 30 defense in points per game. Carson Wentz did have some pretty good stats in some areas, over 5,000 yards and 36 touchdowns, but did throw 20 interceptions. On the ground, Dameon Pierce ran for 800 yards and 9 touchdowns, and I didn't want to go to blocking, I wanted to go to receiving here. Brandon Cooks caught 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns, Odell Beckham 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, Evan Ingram got 4 touchdowns, and Sterling Shepard got 5. Over on defense, who led the team in tackles? That is going to be TJ Edwards. What about tackles for a loss? That goes to Malik Collins. And in sacks, that goes to Will Anderson, who got 12. Agbanyo Okoronkwo got 10. And what about interceptions? That goes to Taki with 4 and Desmond King with 4. Joe Burrow leads the league in passing yards. Anthony Richardson was second. Looks like he went to Tampa Bay. Touchdowns goes to Mahomes with 48. Running the ball, Derrick Henry led the league in yards with 1,600. And in touchdowns, that goes to Nick Chubb with 24. Receiving, that goes to Chris Godwin with 129 receptions, 1,600 yards. And most touchdown goes a big tie here. Tyler Boyd, George Pickens, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Keenan Allen all got 14. And the Super Bowl goes to Jacoby Brissett in the Carolina Panthers, 28-24. The NFL MVP goes to Patrick Mahomes. Coach of the Year goes to Zach Taylor. Offensive Player of the Year is Nick Chubb. Defensive Player of the Year is Von Miller. Offensive Rookie of the Year, obviously Anthony Richardson. And Defensive Rookie of the Year goes to Myles Murphy, who doesn't go to Will Anderson. Let's see if we can figure out why Will Anderson did not win Rookie of the Year. He ended up with 12 sacks and 12 tackles for loss. We go over to the Seahawks. It looks like Myles Murphy ended up with 10.5 sacks and 22 tackles for loss, so I guess that would be the difference. It does look like Carson Wentz did regress by 2 overall points. He goes from a 68 down to a 66. And this offseason, we have plenty of cap space to try to get him a lot of help. We have 13 players ready to negotiate their contracts, but we have $134 million in cap space. And the first player we're going to try to re-sign here is left tackle Laramie Tunsil. So we'll make this offer, and he is excited to sign such a great offer and stay with the team. We are also going to attempt to bring back corner Desmond King on a 1-year deal, and he will re-sign his contract. I believe I'm going to let everyone else here walk. The big name here is wide receiver Odell Beckham. We're going to let guys like Malik Collins, AJ Cann, Jonathan Greenard all test free agency. We're going to see if we can get anyone better. Let's take a look at this roster though before I jump into free agency, and we need a lot of help. It looks like receivers going to need to be upgraded a little bit more. Sterling Shepard's down to a 79 overall. Probably going to need some more offensive linemen. I'm pretty sure Nelson is a left tackle, so we may not have any center on the roster at all. So this should be a pretty interesting offseason. Now, the defense was the worst part of this team last year, and I'm going to say the main thing we're going to look to upgrade this offseason is going to be defensive tackle. We do have $104 million in cap space headed into free agency, so hopefully we can make a pretty decent splash here. Here are the 5 contracts I am offering in this stage of free agency. Most of these guys are not interested in us, but I think we're the top offer from most of these places. I'm going after defensive back AJ Terrell, wide receiver Marquise Brown, defensive tackle Grover Stewart, defensive end Zach Seiler, and right guard Robert Hunt. Let's see if any of these guys actually want to sign with us here. Looks like everyone has signed but Marquise Brown, and they have all signed with us. So 2 teams are attempting to bid for Marquise Brown, but I think right now we are still safe. Wide receiver Gabe Davis has been added to my list. Defensive end JJ Watt, just for some depth. Also, he apparently didn't retire in this universe. Defensive tackle Fletcher Cox, and center Matt Paradis or Paradise. Not real sure how to say his name, but let's see. It looks like everyone has signed but JJ and Fletcher Cox. Let's see. Did we land Marquise Brown? Yes, we did. We also landed Gabe Davis. And jumping over to the next stage, JJ Watt has also now signed his contract. Also, we got Matt Paradis or Paradise. Once again, don't know how to say his name. I assume it's Paradis, but whatever. He has also signed his contract, so we're only waiting on Fletcher Cox. Can you please sign after this stage? He is now gone, and he has signed with us. Looking over the top free agents here, Justin Herbert is now headed to Tennessee. Jeffrey Simmons is headed to Atlanta. T. Higgins is a Bear. Brandon Ayuk is a Cowboy, and Shaq Mason is now a Giant. It is now time for the next NFL draft, and it looks like we pick at number 6 here, so let's see what the top 5 do. The Seahawks take a defensive end out of Wake Forest. The Lions are going to take quarterback Tom Andrews out of Central Arkansas. The Saints are going to take quarterback Brian Silvers out of Alabama. The Cardinals with pick 4 are going to take an outside linebacker out of Alabama. And the Jaguars with pick 5 are going to take a defensive end out of USC. And with our 6th pick here in the draft, I'm going to take right tackle Connor Moore out of Tennessee, and he will have a hidden depth trade. We do have another first round pick, and I'm going to use it on free safety Mike Jarrett out of Ole Miss, and he will also come in with a hidden depth trade and 92 speed. With the 6th pick here in the 2nd round, I'm going to take defensive tackle Devin Wolf out of Ohio State, and he will have a normal depth trade. Really not what I expected, but it's whatever. In the 3rd round here, we're going to take defensive end Ronald Sharp out of USC, and he will come in also with a normal depth trade. And that was all of our picks here in the first 3 rounds, so now I am jumping to the end. For the draft recap, we took a 71 overall right tackle, a 77 overall free safety, a 75 overall defensive tackle, and a 69 overall right end. The computer took a 67 overall tight end, a 66 overall left tackle, a 66 overall middle linebacker, a 64 overall guard, a 60 overall guard, and a 63 overall running back. We did manage to take one of the best players in the draft. It looks like there were 3 players with a 77 overall, and we did take one of them in Mike Jarrett. Here is your starting offense for Season 2 of this career revival. I think this receiving core might honestly be better than the one he had last season. We added more on the offensive line. He still has Evan Ingram at tight end. I feel like this offense is pretty solid. The O-line is a bit shaky, I will give him that. Over on the defensive side of the ball, it appears that during simulation they actually cut JJ Watt. Doesn't really surprise me, but either way, we added guys like Zach Seiler. It looks like Wolf, our new defensive tackle, is actually injured for the next 7 weeks, so this will be our starting defensive tackles for the first half of the season. That's not exactly great, but let's hope the rest of the defense can kind of carry them. As we now simulate to the end of Season 2, I expect this to be a little bit better of a team. I still don't know if this is honestly a playoff team. Having a 66 overall quarterback is very, very hard to overcome, and I understand this is almost an impossible challenge to try to win a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz. This may be the final season. We'll see how far he regresses after the year. This team got a little bit better, and by a little bit, I mean we got one more win, but it looks like we kind of took a dip in performance here. I believe last season we were the 17th offensive points per game. This year we are the 27th and the 23rd on defense. Carson Wentz had a pretty solid year again, 4,900 yards, 35 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Dameon Pierce ran for 900 yards and 10 touchdowns, and receiving Marquise Brown 91 catches, 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns. Gabe Davis caught 8, Brandon Cooks caught 6, and then over on defense, TJ Edwards led the team in tackles with 144. In sacks, Will Anderson only got 9 this year, and interceptions, Sion Taki got 4. Joe Burrow leads the league in passing yards with a little over 5,000. Rookie Tom Andrews for the Lions threw for 5,003. Also led the league in touchdown passes with 42, and interceptions, Mac Jones threw 23 of them. Running the ball, Derrick Henry ran for 1,700 yards and 19 touchdowns, but Josh Jacobs ran for 24. And receiving, Christian Kirk caught 120 passes, 1,600 yards, and 14 touchdowns, but Terry McLaurin with 18 touchdowns leads the league. This Super Bowl goes to the Baltimore Ravens 25-24, led by Super Bowl MVP Michael Pierce. NFL MVP is Dak Prescott, Coach of the Year is Josh McDaniels, Offensive Player of the Year is Terry McLaurin, Defensive Player of the Year is Nick Bosa, Offensive Rookie of the Year is the Vikings quarterback. Not the quarterback that threw 5,000 yards and led the league in touchdown passes. Alright, makes sense. And Defensive Rookie of the Year is a linebacker for the Raiders. Carson Wentz remains a 66 overall, so we are actually going to go ahead and do one more season. He's got 1 year left to try to win a Super Bowl here. This offseason, we are starting with $70 million in cap space and have 10 players ready to negotiate their contracts. We are going to try to bring back Desmond King on another 1 year contract, and it looks like he has re-signed. And I'm going to let everyone else walk just because I feel like I can probably find someone in free agency that's a little bit better. The big name here, though, is Brandon Cook, so we will be looking at new wide receivers as well. Looking at the offense going into free agency, we're going to need a center, and like I just said, we're going to need a new wide receiver because Brandon Cooks has walked. We may even bring back Brandon Cooks. Don't get scared about left tackle because Laremy Tunsil is still here. He's just currently injured. I like what I'm building over here on defense. I feel like I need to get a better edge rusher for this side at least. Maybe a better defensive tackle. I don't really know. Wolf seems to be solid as a 76 overall. I know Taki has led the team in picks the last couple years, but we're probably going to look for a new outside linebacker as well. There are some massive names here in free agency. Outside linebacker Micah Parsons, running back Joe Mixon, wide receiver Devontae Smith, Aaron Jones, Hassan Reddick, Travis Etienne. There are a lot of huge names here. Alright, I think Philadelphia lost everybody. Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, Devontae Smith are all here. And I've burned through all of our cap on 3 free agents because that is the way I've decided to do things this time. We're going to go after wide receiver Devontae Smith, defensive end Josh Sweat, and outside linebacker Matt Judon. Hopefully all 3 of these guys sign, but they're really not interested in us at all. We actually do land all 3, which really surprises me. So this will be our entire free agent class because we have no cap space. We are now at the next NFL draft and we have the 9th pick here. So one of our biggest needs on the team is at center, and I'm looking at Mason Morgan here out of Notre Dame. I think it might be kind of a reach to take him, but past that, it's just a bunch of day 3 centers that don't really look that good. So we're going to take center Mason Morgan out of Notre Dame, and he will have a hidden dev trait, thankfully. I could be completely wrong with this pick, but I'm going to take defensive tackle Tavares Stills just because I think he is the best player left available, and he has a normal dev trait, so probably not. In the 3rd round here, I'm going to take right guard Glenn Schultz out of Miami, and he will come in with a normal dev trait as well. So this final draft class, not really much of a help. We ended up with a 75 overall center, a 74 overall defensive tackle, a 73 overall right guard, a 67 overall quarterback. I will have to edit his ratings, otherwise they're going to try to make him start over Carson Wentz. A 77 overall running back in the 5th round. Alright, the computer made a pretty good choice there. A 73 overall receiver in the 6th round, and a 63 overall center. Is this guy a hidden dev trait? 21 years old? He is. 91 speed. This is a really solid running back. I think he'd be a lot of fun to use if I was playing these games at all. Here is your final offense for this career revival video. Carson Wentz is still a 66 overall. Now was an 85 overall running back in Dameon Pierce, a 93 overall receiver in Devontae Smith, an 89 overall receiver in Marquise Brown, and an 89 overall in Gabe Davis, an 86 overall tight end, an entire O-line that has at least star dev trait. If he can't make this offense work, I really think he's probably done. Then over on defense, we added guys like Josh Sweat and Matt Judon to try to help us out, try to win a Super Bowl in this season. Before I simulate this season, you can see we have an 85 overall offense, an 88 overall defense, and an 86 overall team, which I do believe will be one of the highest rated teams in the league. But I think the main thing that this career revival is going to come down to is how well this team can carry Carson Wentz. He has a completely stacked receiving core, a very good running back, and a very good tight end, and a really solid defense, an 88 overall defense. Hopefully we can at least get to the playoffs. We do finally finish with a winning season, but we do not make the playoffs. We finished the season 9-8. We have the 17th offensive points per game and the 7th defense. So this was by far the best defense I have put together on this Texans team so far, but still not enough. And Wentz ended with a pretty solid year yet again. 4,900 yards, 33 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. On the ground, Dameon Pierce finally broke 1,000 yards and got 9 touchdowns. The backup running back Cutler ran in for 6. Receiving, Gabe Davis got 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns. And Marquise Brown, 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. What about the defensive side of the ball? TJ Edwards yet again leading the team in tackles with 143. Josh Sweat got 13 sacks, Will Anderson only got 6, and interceptions, Derek Stingley got 2, Jalen Petrie got 2, and Desmond King got 2. And the Ravens have now won back-to-back Super Bowls here in this universe, led by Lamar Jackson. The NFL MVP goes to Jalen Hurts, Coach of the Year is Mike McCarthy, Offensive Player of the Year is Cooper Kupp, Defensive Player of the Year is Aaron Donald, and it looks like Offensive Rookie of the Year is a quarterback for the Chargers, and Defensive Rookie of the Year is a linebacker for the Buccaneers. And currently he has a +2 morale boost, getting him to a 68 overall, but he is still a 66 overall quarterback. But I don't think it's really possible. This team was completely stacked and we failed to even make the playoffs. So I'm going to consider this career revival a failure, even though I knew it was almost an impossible task to begin with. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys next time.